Hi there. Today we'll go over the California's Rule 21. In the fall 2017, California became the first US state to require the use of advanced or smart inverters in solar projects, basically. These changes implemented through updates to Rule 21 require that the solar inverters need to have certain capabilities to ensure proper operations of the electric grid, as more and more renewable energies, distributed energies resources are connected. While these requirements are specific to California, the changes are representative of the approaches other states are likely to consider in the future. If you are a solar professional, it's a good idea to get familiar with these changes, no matter where you're based. So, by the way, California just passed the SB 100, which sets a target of sourcing 100% of state's electricity from clean energy by 2045. So that's a big news. So the agenda that we'll be going through today would be why are these changes being implemented? What is the roadmap? And so the implementation phases. So what the future of solar inverters look like. So it's just a preview. It's actually being implemented in phases, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, upon the recommendation of a special group. We'll be discussing on that, and also the next steps, like what it means for the future of solar inverters, and why the inverter manufacturers should be really looking closely to these standards. So it's actually going to affect their product roadmap, basically. So the revisions, coming to the the revisions to Rule 21, so they are being implemented in 3 phases. So phase 1, which came into effect on September 9th of 2017, requires that any solar project which applies for interconnection to the grid must use an advanced inverter capable of performing 7 autonomous grid support functions. So inverters that are eligible for the use under Rule 21 are those who have been tested and certified under the new UL testing protocol, otherwise known as UL 1741 Supplement A. That's the full form of SA. So one of the main changes under UL 1741 SA is that the inverters are now allowed to operate under a wider range of voltages and frequency levels. In the previous protocol, that is UL 1741, the old interconnection requirements only allowed inverters to operate within a very narrow band of frequency and voltage. So if you are in US, the frequency is like 60 hertz and the voltages vary from 110 volts. If you are in Asia, specifically in India, the voltages vary from 240 volts and the frequency is like 50 hertz. So it's usually like under this 1%. That's the the standard UL 1741, which allowed to be operated at very restrictive voltages and current, which was very representative of your grid voltages and frequencies. That meant that the use of many commercially available inverters functions. So the inverters functions where usually it's an inverter which has a capability of pumping reactive power, absorbing reactive power to support the grid. So all those capabilities of the computing rich inverter was being prevented in the earlier standard, which now been overcome. So phase 2 will establish communication requirements for inverters. So as I will see, like the phase 2 has already been done currently. So even though the COVID pandemic has ravaged across the world, but this roadmap is still underway. So the phase 2 will be setting standards on how the inverters communicate with each other and the utility systems. This will be very important, enabling grid managers to eventually make remote adjustments to the inverter operations to keep the grid running smoothly. Phase 2 will also require that the inverters have the capability to communicate over the internet. However, the internet connections for solar systems will not be required at this stage, because it's not yet being determined whether the utilities or the solar customers will be responsible for paying the internet connections. The exact date that the phase 2 will go into effect was not being actually determined, but it was decided it would either be like on March 1st, 2018, or 9 months after the release of an industry recognized certification test standard for inverter communication protocols, whichever later. So now you will see in the later slide that it's been decided like as of March 2020. That's the deadline for your phase 2. Coming to phase 3, finally, it will require additional inverter functions like data monitoring and remote connection and disconnections, and maximum power controls. The specific requirement and timing of this phase have not been determined, but although, so this group, which is called as the Smart Inverter Working Group, SIWG, which has been very instrumental in establishing the details of California's Rule 21 revisions, has released some recommendations, which we'll see next. So this is the recommendation basically. So it's like the deadlines basically, right? So the Smart Inverter Working Group, so this SIWG grew out of collaboration between the CPUC, or the California Public Utility Commissions, and the California Energy Commissions. So like California has its own rule book, electricity rule book, CEC, and like entire US has National Electric Code. California has which is much more advanced than, so whatever California does, United States, the rest of the states follows California. So that's something that tells a lot about California from the electricity point of view. And so this collaboration, SIWG, grew in early 2013s. So that was way like 7 years back, and they identified a roadmap basically, and identified the development of advanced inverter functionality as an important strategy to mitigate the impact of high penetrations of this distributed energy resources, or DERs. That's the technical term that we use for solar panels everywhere on house. So you see that kind of drastically affects the load, the grid, because basically in the mornings when there's a huge amount of, obviously in the mornings you have sunlight available, all the demand is being met by the solar, and the grid is not utilized. The utilities are at very, very low demand, but as the evening approaches, there's a huge spike, and that's where the inverters which are connected on the the solar and on the grid can help in establishing grid support functionalities basically. And that's where SIWG, CEC and CPUC came together and recognized that, and this is what they have come up with the recommendation basically. And As you can see here, so as of March 22, 2020, the phase 2 has been done, and you can see like the phase 3, there are a lot of functions if you go through the documentation. So functions 1, 2, 3, and 8 have already been achieved along with phase 2, but and obviously functions 5 and 6 have been achieved a year back, but functions 4 and 7 have still to be decided, I think. So this affects the manufacturers of the inverter. So there are huge like inverter manufacturers like Enphase, like that's the leader in microinverter. Coming to string inverters, you have SMA, as for long as I remember. These are the big inverter manufacturers. So all this rule is going to have a long, it's not just restricted to California. So the big question is like how to comply. So to comply with the current phase rule of 21, the main thing you need to know is that the inverter you select for your solar design must be certified under UL 1741 SA. So that's the crucial certification that you need to see. So please consult the CEC database to be sure. And after choosing the certified inverter, some setup may be required to ensure that the inverter operates under the default parameters of Rule 21. So this can be determined during the interconnection process with local utility and set up either remotely or through the inverter interface. So that phase will be done later. So next steps. So this is just the beginning. It's just as the grid evolves and as solar penetrates households, and as solar rates actually decrease and become competitive at the residential scales, we're going to see this standardization being applied not only to California, it's going to expand. So it's California is just the first state so to take these steps. Whether you're a solar contractor, independent business owner, it's really good idea to be aware of these changes wherever you work, because other states are likely to be considering similar moves in the future. So be it Arizona, Massachusetts, they're going to follow California's lead. So as we work towards a future where clean and renewable energy is the norm, smart inverters will play an important role in managing the modern grid. Hope this video was useful. I've taken references from Aurora Solar. There's a blog. I'll link it below in the description. It's a really great software. I've used it in my career. It's a great solar design software, and I'm thankful for Aurora to sharing this blog. Yeah, so thank you all. See you next time.